Power is a fragile thing. For those who hold it, it can seem absolute eternal. But history is littered with empty thrones and crowns without heads to wear them. Some rulers meet their end on the battlefield, others at the hands of an assassin. Their stories, though often brutal, are complete. But there are others. Leaders who commanded armies, who built empires, who were revered as gods, and then simply vanished. They stepped out of the light of history and into the shadows, leaving behind a legacy of power and a final, unsolvable mystery. In the year 244 AD, the Roman Empire was locked in a bitter war with the Sassanid Persians. At its head was the young Emperor Gordian III. Deep in Mesopotamia, a great battle was fought, and in its aftermath, Gordian was gone. The Romans, led by his successor Philip the Arab, claimed he died of disease. The Persians, however, boasted that their king, Shapur I, had struck him down in combat. But no body was ever definitively presented. No tomb was ever raised with imperial honors on that foreign soil. He was the emperor of the known world one day, and a ghost story whispered on the desert wind the next. Centuries earlier, another great power struggle played out in Persia. The Prince Cyrus the Younger sought to usurp the throne from his own brother. In 401 BC, at the Battle of Cunaxa, he led a charge deep into the enemy lines, aiming for the king himself. He was seen cutting his way through the royal guard, a whirlwind of ambition and steel. Then the chaos of battle swallowed him whole. His Greek mercenaries, the famous 10,000, would later be told he was killed. But his body was never recovered by his men. He disappeared at the very moment of his greatest gamble, his ultimate fate lost in the blood and dust of a fratricidal war. Rome's history is filled with such phantoms. In 53 BC, at the disastrous Battle of Carrhae, the triumvir Marcus Licinius Crassus watched his army, and his ambitions, be annihilated by the Parthians. In the heat of the fighting, he sent his beloved son, Publius Crassus, on a desperate cavalry charge. Publius and his men rode over a ridge, and were never seen again by the main Roman force. Accounts suggest they were surrounded and slaughtered, with Publius taking his own life rather than being captured. But for the grieving father and the shattered remnants of his army, the young general simply rode into the haze of battle and did not come back. In 1402, the imperial palace in Nanjing, China was a sea of fire. The Yongle emperor had usurped the throne from his nephew, the Jianwen emperor. As the palace burned, the fate of the deposed ruler became a legend. The official court records claimed he perished in the flames, a convenient and tidy end. But rumors, persistent and powerful, told a different story. They whispered that the Jianwen emperor had escaped through a secret tunnel disguised as a monk. For decades, tales would surface of an enigmatic wandering holy man who bore a striking resemblance to the lost emperor, a man who had traded an empire for a life of anonymity. His true end remains one of the great unresolved questions of the Ming dynasty. The Qin dynasty, China's first imperial dynasty, ended not with a bang, but with a disappearance. In 207 BC, the empire was collapsing under the weight of a massive rebellion. The second emperor, Hu Hai, a weak and paranoid ruler, was cornered. Faced with certain death at the hands of the rebels closing in on his capital, he chose another path. He didn't stay for a final glorious stand. He simply fled, abandoning his throne and his title, and vanished into the vast wilderness of ancient China. He ran from history itself and was so successful that no record, no body, no final testimony ever marked his end. Sometimes the very elements seemed to conspire to create a mystery. Alexander the Great's trusted general, Cletus the Black, was a man who had survived countless battles. But in 324 BC, while commanding a fleet of 80 ships, he was caught in a monstrous storm off the coast of Caria. The sea, which had carried Alexander's armies to glory, turned against them. When the storm passed, the fleet was gone. Not just wrecked, but utterly obliterated. Cletus the Black, a man whose life was defined by the clash of swords, was claimed by the silent, crushing depths, his body and his ships lost to the sea forever. In 1886, the placid waters of Lake Starnberg in Bavaria became the setting for a royal enigma. King Ludwig II, the fairy tale king, known for his eccentric behavior and fantastical castles, had been declared insane and deposed. Held at a lakeside castle, he went for a walk with his psychiatrist. Hours later, both men were found dead in the shallow water. The official ruling was that Ludwig, in a suicide attempt, had drowned his doctor and then himself. but Ludwig was a strong swimmer. No water was found in his lungs, and the circumstances were riddled with inconsistencies. Did he suffer a heart attack? Was it a botched escape? Or was it a political assassination, disguised as an accident? The tranquil lake keeps its secrets. The story of the Zulu Empire is one of fierce conquest and brutal politics. Shaka Zulu's half-brother, Dingaan, seized power by assassinating him. But his reign was fraught with conflict, culminating in a devastating defeat at the hands of the Boers and his own brother, Mpende. In 1840, Dingaan was a king on the run. He fled north, his power broken, his allies gone. He was last seen crossing into the lands of the Nyawo people in the Lebombo Mountains. After that, the trail goes cold. He was said to have been killed by a local chief, but like so many others, his final moments are unrecorded, his grave unknown. He disappeared into the very wilderness he once ruled. Go back further to the dawn of dynastic Egypt. Around 2890 BC, a pharaoh named Semerkit sat on the throne. His reign is attested to in inscriptions, a brief but real entry in the long line of kings. And yet, of all the early pharaohs, he is the most elusive. While his predecessors and successors have tombs, however plundered, that we can point to, Semerkit's final resting place has never been found. No pyramid, no mastaba, no body has ever been confirmed as his. He ruled, he was a god on earth, and then he was erased, leaving only his name etched in stone and a void in the archaeological record. In the 13th century BC, the citadel of Pylos was a center of Mycenaean civilization in Greece. It was ruled by a king known only by his title, the Wainax. Clay tablets found in the palace archives paint a picture of a kingdom in its final, frantic days. They speak of watchers guarding the coast, of preparations for a coming invasion. The palace was then violently destroyed by fire, a destruction so complete that the tablets were baked hard, preserving them for millennia. But in these final records, there is no mention of the Wainax's fate. He is the central figure in the drama, yet he is absent from its final act. He vanished on the eve of his city's annihilation. The great Mesoamerican city of Teotihuacan projected its power across the region for centuries. Its influence is seen in the Maya city of Tikal, where a powerful figure known as Spare-Thrower Owl appears in the records in the 4th century AD. He may have been the king of Teotihuacan itself, a foreign ruler who installed his own dynasty in Tikal. For a time his name is everywhere, a symbol of immense power. And then, abruptly, he vanishes from all inscriptions. The records simply stop mentioning him. Whether he died, returned home, or was overthrown is a blank page. A king who reshaped a civilization became a footnote. His end a complete mystery. In the Indus Valley, one of the world's oldest civilizations flourished. From the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro, a famous statuette was unearthed. The priest king, a serene bearded figure of authority. He is our best guess at what the rulers of this enigmatic culture looked like. But the identity of these rulers, their names, their dynasties, are unknown to us. The civilization itself collapsed around 1900 BC, its writings still undeciphered. The depictions of figures like the priest king simply end. The entire ruling class of a civilization that spanned 1 million square kilometers vanished, their power structure dissolving into the dust of a forgotten age. In 1533, the last emperor of the Inca, Atahualpa, was executed by the Spanish conquistadors who had captured him. His death marked the end of an empire. But the Spanish, fearing his body would become a symbol of rebellion, were careless with his remains. He was initially buried as a Christian, but his followers, loyal to the end, are said to have exhumed his body and secreted it away to a hidden location for a proper Inca burial. To this day, despite countless searches, the final resting place of Atahualpa is one of the most sought-after secrets in the Andes. The body of the last Inca king is still missing. The Vikings were masters of the sea, and one of their greatest kings was Harald Hardrada of Norway. In 1066, he invaded England, only to be defeated and killed at the Battle of Stamford Bridge. His surviving army was allowed to retreat. But legend speaks of one ship in his vast fleet, a vessel laden with the immense treasury he had amassed over a lifetime of warfare and raiding. This ship, carrying a fortune and its crew, became separated from the rest of the fleet on the journey home. It was never seen again. The king was dead, and his treasure, along with the men guarding it, simply sailed off the map and into legend. High on a mountain in modern-day Turkey sits Nemrut Dagi, one of the most astonishing monuments of the ancient world. It is the tomb sanctuary of King Antiochus I of Commagene, a ruler of a small Hellenistic kingdom. He built this colossal site, with its giant stone heads of gods and kings as his final resting place. The inscriptions are clear. This is his tomb. And yet, despite centuries of searching and modern archaeological surveys, the actual burial chamber of Antiochus has never been found. He built a mountain to mark his grave, and then disappeared within it. In the chaotic period of the later three kingdoms of Korea, a charismatic but tyrannical leader named Gungda carved out his own state. A former monk who claimed to be the living Buddha, he ruled with an iron fist until his own generals could no longer tolerate his cruelty. In 918, they revolted. Gungda was overthrown, and he fled his palace. And that is the last we know for certain. The official histories, written by his enemies, claim he was found by some commoners and beaten to death. But no site was ever marked, no body ever produced. For a man who claimed to be a god, his end was terrifyingly human and utterly anonymous. In the 10th century, a fearsome queen known as Yodik Gudit ravaged the Christian kingdom of Aksum in modern-day Ethiopia. For 40 years, she burned churches, destroyed monasteries, and hunted the royal family. She was a destructive force of nature, a figure of immense terror in Ethiopian history. But for all the stories of her reign of fire and blood, there is no account of her death. After 4 decades of turmoil, her reign ends, and she simply disappears from the historical narrative. How, when, or where this terrible queen met her end is completely unknown. The magnificent temple of Angkor Wat in Cambodia is the enduring legacy of the Khmer ruler Suryavarman II. He was a god-king, a conqueror who expanded his empire and created one of the wonders of the world as his own mausoleum. He reigned for nearly 4 decades in the 12th century. And then the records fall silent. He is last mentioned leading a military campaign in 1145. It is assumed he died sometime between then and 1150, but the circumstances, the place of his death, and the location of his remains have never been determined. Even his grand temple, built to house his essence for eternity, has not given up the secret of his disappearance. In 15th century Japan, the Ashikaga shogunate was rife with internal conflict. In 1441, the shogun Ashikaga Yoshinori was assassinated during a banquet. In the chaos that followed, his designated heir, a young boy, was at the center of a palace power struggle. During the fighting and political maneuvering, he vanished. In an era of meticulous court records, his fate is a blank space. Whether he was spirited away by loyalists, killed by rivals and his body hidden, or simply lost in the confusion, no one knows. A future shogun disappeared before he could even rule. The Battle of the Teutoburg Forest in 09 AD was Rome's darkest hour. 3 legions under the command of the general Publius Quinctilius Varus were ambushed and annihilated by Germanic tribes. Varus took his own life. But the tragedy didn't end there. Among the thousands of Roman prisoners taken was Varus's own young son. While some prisoners were eventually ransomed or escaped, the son of the lost general was not among them. He was swallowed by the dark forests of Germania, a high-born Roman boy taken by his father's enemies, never to be heard from again. His fate an eternal painful postscript to one of Rome's greatest disasters. From the sands of Mesopotamia to the forests of Germany, from the mountains of the Andes to the palaces of the Forbidden City, these stories echo the same unsettling truth, that even the most powerful among us can be erased. They leave behind questions that have no answers and mysteries that time cannot be answered. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and share this video with fellows. Your support helps us bring you more captivating content like this.